What about Bolsonaro? You met with him. First of all, what was that like? And did you see him coming? And what has it been like? Has he been able to pull off a Trump kind of dynamic?
Yes, I think they're very similar in many ways. So I met with him in 2016 in Congress, the day of the voting of Dilma's impeachment, where he became worldly famous for dedicating his vote to the general responsible for her torture, and was not punished for that speech, which is really shocking. And he had already a following then. He told me in the quarters that he was wanting to run for president in 2 years, and he had 11% in vote intentions. No one believed that would ever happen. I mean, I spoke to everyone. I mean, every political scientist, every politician, journalist, and until 2 months before his election, everyone would laugh with the possibility that he would win, because he had 30 seconds of television space, which is how usually an election is decided in Brazil. But he was very smart, like Salvini in Italy, in creating this huge social media following and tapping into this like sleeping fascism that hadn't been touched upon and massaged since the 60s, or actually before, even when the integralist movement happened in Brazil in the 40s, 30s. And he woke up this ghost that we didn't even know was there, but was clearly there because Brazil didn't know how to deal with its past in a way that really transformed the society. And he grew a lot because of Lula's imprisonment as well. That was,
right, absolutely.
As The Intercept showed, the possibility of collusion between Moro and the prosecutors, and then Moro becomes his justice minister of Bolsonaro.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah. And now the prosecutor's office in Brazil tries to incriminate Glenn Greenwald for revealing what the government should be investigating were the possible crimes of Moro, but no, instead they will kill the messenger.
Right.
And the government has been very fast in destroying all the agencies that build Brazilian civil society and are essential for Brazilian democracy, be it the agencies that control that deforestation won't happen in the Amazon, be it by incentivizing the police to kill in Rio de Janeiro, which already has the highest homicide rate of police killing people, civilians, in more people are killed by the police in the state of Rio than in the entire United States.
Right.
And he's asking the police to kill more.
To actually increase that rate.
And that rate has increased by 20% since he took office. The censorship in the arts has been shocking, because during the military dictatorship, they had to do another coup, which was the Institutional Act number 5, that actually to establish censorship, but now they managed to establish censorship in the guise of a democracy. There were 30 works of art that were censored last year. There's been huge cuts in financing of cinema, of the arts. No more LGBTQ plus content. There was a book that was censored in an art fair just because it had 2 men kissing. And even my film was attacked for being what the president and his secretary of culture at the time called fiction and fantasy. And then that same secretary of culture 4 days later makes a speech plagiarizing Goebbels.
I was there for that. That was exciting. That was wild to actually be sitting at it was really funny because we were at this totally some type of thing that would be in Brooklyn, some type of lunch place where you can eat quinoa. And on the screen, they're translating it to me. They're like, "Yeah, our culture minister is quoting Goebbels." So, all right,
really,
I get, yeah. The people I was with. Another parallel that I think is, you talked about this idea of waking up a ghost because Brazil had not dealt with its history, and I think that's another. It's certainly a prevalent in the United States, but it seems to me this is very a common symptom of right-wing politics or fascism is the psychological, emotional need for a historical fantasy, both because you can't have a material understanding of what's actually happening now, or you want to protect, vestiges of hierarchy or privilege. But these messages can get really broadly sent out because we live in societies that don't have any sense of the context that they're existing in. And you see this in the United States in like every single category. There's just a basic lack of any kind of, forget even like left wing, I'm talking just even basic information of the trajectory of this country.
Yeah.
And that was something that I also caught from your film, that it's, if the world started in 1989 and all you've gotten is a bunch of weird propaganda about the Workers' Party, and Brazil also has a big YouTube right-wing phenomenon, just like the United States, and you don't even have a concept of what was this thing you're imagining. And in a bizarre way, not in any way to defend him, but Bolsonaro to me seems like such a fanatic and such a fool, in my words, that it almost seems like it's almost kind of made up for him as well. Like it's something that kind of, he was in it, but he was junior. It was already basically ending. And he's got this whole imagined world he wants to be part of.
Yeah. What is tragic is that I think he's not the bad guy. I mean, he is a complex character, but he is the result of repeated attacks to the rule of law that were done with a consensus of so much of the Brazilian establishment that thought it was okay to play with democracy, thought it was okay to destroy the results of an election, to put the institutions into continuous conflict so long as Dilma would be ousted from power and Lula would be imprisoned, and then they thought that the PSDB, which is the center-right party, would win, and we would have like a clean center-right party and everything would be fine. That party was destroyed by its own hands.
This is the Jeb Bush party.
And not only was it destroyed, but it destroyed democracy with it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a book called How Democracies Die that has been helpful for me, because it says precisely, I mean, every person I would interview in this process would say, Lula's imprisonment is constitutional, Dilma's imprisonment is constitutional, like what's the problem? And this book says, well, the problem is that what protects a democracy is not the Constitution, it's two unwritten norms, mutual respect and self-control, which means you have through the constitutions all the instruments you need to destroy your opponent by not allowing them to appoint judges in the Supreme Court, like the Republicans did with Obama, by calling all they say fake news, by calling them a terrorist group, which is what they started doing in Brazil in 2014. Even the center-right started to call the Workers' Party a terrorist party, a party associated with dictatorships and things like that, by discrediting the legitimacy of a political party and one of the most rooted political parties in Brazil. The Workers' Party is essential for Brazilian democracy as well as the PSDB was. And by putting them into this war, they destroyed the Brazilian political system and gave rise to this Frankenstein.
Yeah. Do you think that the more corporate-oriented interests were? I mean, this is what you can get from the Intercept leaks, right? I'm sure that a couple of years ago, maybe these people that were targeting Lula and the Workers' Party, they would prefer the center-right party emerge. But at the end of the day, if it has to be, it has to be Bolsonaro, it's Bolsonaro. I mean, look at Davos. There was a great report from Kate Ashroff in the New Republic saying, Davos still likes to present itself as very concerned about global warming and inequality and enlightened oligarchy. And Trump and Mnuchin are having a great Davos.
Yeah.
And last year, Bolsonaro had a great Davos because at the end of the day, I mean,
Yeah.
Capital will break fascists because it will protect capital.
Yeah. There's a great quote by Umberto Eco in his book Fascism, where he says that in the 30s, the European liberals decided that fascism was the best revolution to protect them of the communist threat.
Right.
And that's what's fascinating and shocking of the moment we're living in history now, which we would think, I mean, that capitalism was dysfunctional and that capitalists were driven by greed, but not that they would accept fascists ruling their countries and even try to help that happen, right? I mean,
well, particularly when even the alternative is not even communist revolution. It's
exactly.
like basic social democracy.
Yeah.
But I think that, well, I'm a Marxist, so it doesn't surprise me that much.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you read this all that, I mean, what Benjamin said, that it's like doesn't he say in the essay to history that it's just history is made of continuous fascism that we.
Oh, yeah. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.